I'm sure somebody's gonna come at me in the comments for calling them pecans and not pecans, you know? It's just a battle I already know is coming, you know? So I'm bracing for it. Let's go. Among the hosts of Christmas cookies that are out there, Pecan Snowball cookies are near the top for me. And that's because they're really rich and buttery and crumbly, but they're also pretty sweet because they're coated in a double layer of powdered sugar. Even though the recipe might seem pretty complex, just follow my tips and I promise your batch will come out just right. First, we need to toast our pecans before we do anything else in this recipe, and trust me, this step is essential. It's gonna do something really special to the cookie, which I'll explain when we're putting the dough together. So here I have 2 cups of finely chopped pecans, and I'm gonna spread it out on a baking sheet and throw it in a 350-degree oven, just until they're nice and toasty, about 6 to 8 minutes. It's been 7 minutes, and I can already smell that my pecans are done. My kitchen has like a super nutty, toasty aroma to it. So we're gonna take these pecans out and set them aside to cool completely. In my stand mixer, I'm going to combine 1 cup of unsalted butter that I've left out overnight, so it's at room temperature. It's really important it's at room temperature because if it's cold, the sugar is not gonna dissolve as easily and you're not gonna get a really fluffy and creamy butter sugar base, which is really important to make the texture of this shortbread cookie exactly what we need it to be. To my butter, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to incorporate this on low just so that the sugar doesn't fly out of the bowl as the butter kind of breaks down. But once the butter and the sugar are roughly incorporated, I'm gonna increase the speed to medium-high and beat it until it's really light and fluffy, which will take probably 3 to 5 minutes. If you notice that your butter and sugar are clinging to the sides of your bowl, you can just scrape it down before you keep beating it, just to make sure that it's not escaping all of that air that's being pushed into the butter sugar by the paddle. For those of you who make cookies regularly, you might notice that this is not a lot of sugar for this amount of butter. And that's because these cookies are really special in how we get the sweetness in the cookie. Rather than putting it in the dough, it's going to actually be on the outside, coating the cookie, using a very special technique that I'm gonna show you how to do later and explain why it works so well. But for now, I've scraped down the sides of my bowl and I'm now gonna add my teaspoon of vanilla and my 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt and just mix it until it's incorporated. Now to our butter sugar mixture, we're gonna add the rest of our ingredients. So I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour that I'm gonna dump in. And I have my toasted chopped pecans right here. This is really important. You wanna make sure that the pecans are completely cool, because if you put hot pecan pieces into this mixture, it's gonna melt the butter and affect the texture of the cookie dough. But now that they're cooled, all of the flavorful oils that have been brought out of the pecans from toasting them in the oven will kind of perfume the dough of the cookie. And so the richness and the nuttiness of the toasted pecans will kind of amplify the savoriness of the butter and make a cookie dough, a shortbread that's extra salty and savory to complement the sweetness that's both gonna coat the outside of the cookie and the little bit of sugar that's inside the cookie. Okay, and now we're just gonna mix this on low speed until everything is well combined. You'll notice that the cookie dough is really crumbly, and that's a good thing. It's gonna make the texture of the cookie really crumbly as you bite into it, which is really nice for a shortbread cookie like this. You can see what I mean by how crumbly the cookie dough is. It cascades and falls like wet sand. So I'm now just taking my spatula to make sure that there aren't any pockets of butter and sugar that aren't incorporated at the bottom of my mixer. And right now everything looks good. I have 2 baking sheets that I've lined with parchment paper. The other one's just over there. And I'm going to take some of the cookie dough and mash it into a ball. Because of how crumbly these cookies are, you can't roll them like you would roll a traditional cookie ball. Instead, you have to kind of press them in the palm of your hand to keep them together. This step is great to get other helpers in the kitchen because it takes a good bit of elbow grease. But we're gonna press out 4 dozen of these 1-inch balls of cookie dough and just Keep them apart by about 1 inch on your baking sheet, so you should be able to fit 2 dozen on each of your baking sheets. My cookies are pressed and I have them evenly spaced out on my baking sheets. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and so we're gonna pop these in until they're just lightly browned, which will take about 15 minutes. My cookies are in the oven and I put some powdered sugar in this bowl, and I'm just setting it to the side because I'll need it when the cookies come out of the oven. We're gonna let them cool just slightly so that they don't burn our hands, but while they're still quite warm, we're gonna roll them in the powdered sugar for their first coating. The heat from the cookie and the steam coming off the cookie kind of softens and dissolves the powdered sugar that coats the cookie and turns it into a really sticky glaze that we will then let cool before coating again in another rolling of powdered sugar. My cookies are done baking, and I'm just gonna let them cool for 1 or 2 minutes until I can handle them. The first time you're coating these cookies, you might feel that it's starting to get a little sticky, and that's a really good sign. That just means that the heat and the steam coming off the cookies are doing their job. I also feel like I would be foolish not to mention that this is the prime time for a snack accident to happen, where you're gonna be tempted to just eat one of these cookies before it's done. I'm not gonna judge you, I'm not gonna stop you, but I am gonna tell you that these cookies are way better after you coat them twice in the powdered sugar. But if your curiosity just becomes too much to handle, then all power to you. All right, I'm gonna wash my hands and let these cool completely, and then we're gonna roll them again and give them a try. All right, let's roll for the second time. You'll notice that the outside of the cookie is super sticky and glazy, and that's really gonna help right now. So throw it in your powdered sugar, give it another roll, and these cookies are ready to eat. Now that my cookies are done and beautiful, I'm gonna try one, and I'm also gonna say and acknowledge there's no easy way to do this. You're going to get powdered sugar all over yourself, and that's okay. Who's watching, you know? So here goes nothing. This really is one of the best cookies out there. The cookie falls apart in your mouth as you bite and as you chew. And even though you're initially hit with all of this sweetness from the powdered sugar, it's really rich on the inside and a little salty, which makes for a perfectly balanced cookie that is good, honestly, year round. So by all means, make this whenever you want. If you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe below so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you make this recipe and you have any questions or any ideas, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.